Thank you, Honorable Member Asmani. The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Central Grand Bahama.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, my parliamentary colleagues, and to those watching across the length and breadth of the Bahamas. Madam Speaker, as always, I begin by giving recognitions to the good people of Central Grand Bahama, who I proudly represent. And Madam Speaker, we recognize the Director of Sports at the College of the Bahamas, of the University of the Bahamas, where I'm a proud alum. But I also want to recognize someone sitting in the gallery who has preceded me, who's been a role model, who's done a lot for sports in our country, one of the best sprinters, track and field athletes we have in the country, in the person of Mr. Michael Sands, who is sitting also in the audience. So I want to recognize his presence. And while I recognize Mike, and we're talking about anti-doping in sports, I also want to reflect on the legacy of someone who was for athletics in this country, someone who we recently lost in the person of Alpheus Hawk Finlayson. I didn't get a chance to offer condolences to his family, but Hawk has done so much for this country, and I hope that in some tangible way in the future we'll recognize and his name will be etched in the annals of history of this country. Madam Speaker, today I want to get right into the heart of the debate on the Anti-Doping in Sports Amendment Bill 2023. I may go a little deeper because of my involvement. I promise you I will not. A matter that I take seriously as a former athlete and a former Minister of Youth Sports and Culture. Madam Speaker, I understand how important anti-doping regulation is to ensure our athletes are able to compete at the top level. However, as I look at the amendment to the bill, there is no clear definition of doping. We're talking about anti-doping, but there's no clear definition of actually what doping is in the bill. I think that's something that we need to look at so that there will be no gray area when it comes to the use of that word. It demands that our athletes meet strict criteria and maintain a world-class standard physically. This, my colleague, is because fundamental values of athleticism are the best, competing against the best in your level and at your level. But what has become pervasive is the use of performance enhancers. As a result, we are seeing a global push to manage the problem in order to uphold the integrity of the sports industry. So I believe this anti-doping in sports amendment bill 2023 is an honest attempt to do just that. And I commend the minister and the state for bringing this bill to Parliament. Before I get into the crux of the bill, I think it is important, Madam Speaker, that I put into perspective how important this matter is for all athletes. In its simplest form, doping can be defined as the unlawful use of drugs or illegal substances to enhance the performance of an athlete, and in some cases, even animals. In layman's terms, we call it cheating, or we simply say it ain't fair. It undermines the fundamental values of sports and athletics. True athletes understand that to be the best takes commitment, dedication, persistence, and, of course, integrity. And so, any kind of doping or performance enhancers are cardinal sin. Madam Speaker, drugs and doping in sports have always been discouraged under the 2017 Anti-Doping in Sports Act. It sets out provisions that seeks to manage and navigate how prohibited substances are dealt with in sports in the Bahamas. This amendment bill seeks to modernize the Anti-Doping in Sports Act to combat doping and promote fair competition. It outlines provisions to prevent athletes, support staff, and others from using banned drugs or procedures. These modifications introduce new terms and definitions to better understand anti-doping control. Madam Speaker, we absolutely agree on the need for more autonomy of the Bahamas Anti-Doping Commission, or as the Minister referred to, BATC, separation of that oversight from the Minister. It is the responsibility of the Bahamas Anti-Doping Commission to combat sports doping. We hope that with more powers, we will be able to see information and education programs and the full participation of national and international Bahamian athletes. Our question is, will they get the funding to now meet their mandate? More on this and the future of sports funding later. I'll give you my personal perspective. The Free National Movement believes that more consultation can be had on matters such as these overall, that we understand the importance of moving the needle forward and have no objections to this bill. However, what we want to bring attention to is the blurred lines of doping, to make sure that not only are the rules followed by the athletes, but that their rights are also respected and that they are fairly treated. I want you to pay attention. The bill makes provisions for therapeutic use exemptions. This is when an athlete are able to use certain out of competition and in competition, but those same substances may be prohibited in competition for medical purposes. But what happens? What happens when an athlete uses everyday medication to alleviate ailments and that unknown shows up as an illegal substance in their body? It happens. What happens more than we think? I remember recently one of our athletes, one that I took to Nanjing, China in 2014 for the World Junior Olympics. The swimmer, she got a medal. Recently, she had a slip and fall. She bruised her knee. She went to the pharmacy, got a Neosporin to put over the sore to prevent infection. It so happened that the next day, she had a urine test. And guess what? It shows her as being positive for doping. She innocently put a Neosporin card for seep into her bloodstream during the urine test. Showed up as a banned substance. And she could not compete. It happened. How do you justify punishment in those instances? We must ensure that while we implement best standards, we also remember the human capital. I myself have asthma. I used to have asthma. Thank God I've been delivered from that for some time now. But I'm able to use my inhaler, or Ventolin. But I need pre-clearance, as Mr. San could attest to. I had medical clearance. I was able to use my Ventolin. But if you use Ventolin outside of competition and you're narcotic, you are damn cheating. If someone takes medicine, in some instances, I'll tell you, for cough, Robitussin, take medicine for constipation. They're known as stimulants. And if you're tested, the next day, you are charged with doping. And you can be subjected to suspension or even expulsion. So there are some gray areas that we really need to look at. Can those instances be considered cheating? We must be careful when we navigate these gray areas to avoid the detriments of our athletes. Mr. Speaker, we know that this bill enforces WADA's World Anti-Doping Code as part of our overall anti-doping control. But I also believe that BATSI take helm to ensure that the Bahamian athletes are protected. Madam Speaker, I take lead. I want to touch on one last point, and a lot of this is personal. How do we deal with adequately funding the Anti-Doping Commission, or BATSI? What does it say? That we are more concerned with regulating how our athletes perform instead of ensuring that they are prepared to play at the top of their game? I truly believe that not enough is being done to protect our natural talent, our natural resources. I believe that pound for pound, we are the best in the world, but more funding is needed for talent search, talent development, and exposure to the global stage. And I often said it, I say it again, when I was the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, and I said it to the now Minister, that is one of the most underfunded ministry we have in this country. A lot more is needed for the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Culture. What is being allocated for our developmental programs? More should be sports programs and facilities. But as always, we are a new day late and a few $1 million short. More emphasis must be given to making Grand Bahama a sports power also. I know the blood, sweat, and tears that our athletes invest just to have the chance to perform on the global stage. We have been overthrow and non-knockout punches well above our weight class. I understand then and now the need to give them all the support they require as they serve on the global stage as goodwill ambassadors for our country. We can all agree that more money should go into these programs. Madam Speaker, athletics in general, and I want to reiterate, need more funding. I believe a well-managed, and this is my personal opinion, lottery or alternative funding system should be explored and considered. I know of world-class athletes that walk away from various sporting organizations because of funding challenges. Teams couldn't travel or had to cut. I'll tell you about a time, I'll give a personal testimony. Back in 1993, fortunately, I was working at the time as an architect, and I was able to go to the bank in Canada and borrowed funds, borrowed money to carry the national team to Cali, Colombia. I saw the need to do it. It was the first national team, or the first senior trip team, and I could stand to be corrected, that was attended by Savate Defines, Debbie Ferguson, Tony Williams, Vanetta Roll, God rest her soul, and the now Golden Girls, Eldish, Chandra. They competed for the first time as a team in Cali, Colombia, to a trip that a fellow athlete had to go to the bank to borrow money because, Hawk Finderson and his team tried their best. We were on the radios making appeal, on the station, begging for money. Never came. And I saw the joy in those athletes' face. They made this team, they wanted to go. They said, I can help them. And God helped me to get someone to back me up when I went to the bank, borrowed money to take the team. That shouldn't have to happen. We should have the funds in place to support the development of these athletes. The men's 4x4 team, 4x100 relay team, I remember of myself, Renwood Wells, Andrew Tyne, and Bernard Young. We won the CSC championship, and in the process, we set the national record 4 times that year. 4x1 record, it was some 25 years old, that was established in 1968 at the Olympics by the great Tommy Robinson, Dr. Bernard Nottage, Dr. Norris Stubbs, and Kevin Johnson. 5 years, we broke the record. We did it over and over that year. At the end of the season, the penultimate games was in Stuttgart, Germany. Guess what? We couldn't go. We were ranked 4th or 5th in the world at the time. We couldn't go. No money. And I must say, hats off to Hawk and his team. They tried, they went and they begged, they played on our behalf. And at that time, the best sprinter we had on the team was Bernard Young. He was so discouraged, he walked away from track and field, never looked back. Never looked back. Those sort of things need to be done away with. And there are many more stories that we can refer to where persons just walk away. So while we're talking about anti-doping, let's talk about how we get our athletes and how we can support them, how we're going to fund these programs. It is indeed very necessary. Another thing is, when are we going to recognize our coaches, sporting team members, our support team, the family, the fans? They also play a pivotal role. I spoke again personally about the National Sports Lottery, and I know for some gambling may be a taboo, but I have a choice. Remember this, if there's one thing that God gave man, it's the right to choose. Here's good, here's bad, choose for yourself. Here's light, here's darkness, choose for yourself. Here's heaven, here's hell, choose for yourself. So if God give us the right to choose, why should man take our choice away? You can choose to gamble if you want to, you can drink if you want to, you can smoke if you want to. But I believe you should have that choice. We go away, we do it anyhow. Spend it on foreign. I know I'm stepping out on a limb here, but that's my opinion, because I felt the pinch of it. I saw the discouragement. I saw how our program has been put back in shambles because of the lack of funding. And we could dance around it as much as we want to. We need to find a way to adequately fund our sporting programs and to make sure that the gems we have that would otherwise walk away are given a fair chance to compete on the global stage for this country. And not only that, to make a healthy living for themselves and for their families. Before I take my seat, Madam Speaker, I want to wish all my fellow parliamentarians, all the residents of Central Grand Bahama, happy Yuletide season. On this Saturday, we have the Central Grand Bahama Christmas giveaway at the Royal Oasis ground between the hours of 1 and 3 o'clock. Yeah, I say it's going to rain, and we're now in the middle of it. I'm not sure whether we're going to put it off. But as it stands right now, we look at the rain as a blessing. And finally, there's a matter that we're dealing with in Grand Bahama, and I'm hoping that the government and the Minister of Agriculture will help us in this matter. There's a situation right now, a hot button item dealing with the fishermen in Grand Bahama. There was a particular private property area in off of Tynes Bay, very sheltered area, where they launched their boat, come up land from Andres, Abaco, Bimley, or even the United States of America. However, the landowner recently put up a fence, not a gate, a fence, that prohibits them from getting to the ramp. So these fishermen can't get into the water, they can't go fishing, and the families are suffering. We're only asking the owners to sit and talk with the fishermen. This is how they feed their families, it's how they educate their children, it's how they pay their bills, they supply the restaurants, they supply the fish fry. So we want to just sit and talk with them, see if we could find just a cushion where they will be allowed to use the ramp for at least maybe 4 to 6 weeks until they can find to get in and out of the water. But they just put up a fence and cut them off from their livelihood. I think it's a bit harsh. So I'm appealing to the powers that be to see how we could assist these honest fishermen. They were out there, I was out there in place. They were hustling and carrying on, very mature. They said we want to meet with the owners and sit and talk with them and come up with a viable solution. So Minister, I will also call on you to see how we can assist those fishermen because they really need help, and they'll lend support as best as I can. Madam Speaker, colleagues, Central Grand Bahama hereby rests in full support of this amendment.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable